all four of you standing here, this got me thinking. Here we have French Fry, we have Pippi, we have Frenchie's colt, and we have Pippi's colt. What do all four of these have in common? The answer is they all have a gene that's called lethal white overo. So it's LWO. That sounds really, really bad, right? And it is to some extent. What lethal white overo is it is a gene that if a foal is born to two lethal white overo parents, and if it inherits a lethal white gene from both parents, then that foal will be a lethal white overo. What is a lethal white overo? The foals are born all white. Well, for the most part. We actually had one of these years ago, and it actually had a little tiny spot of color on it, which made it really, really confusing, but it turned out that it was a lethal white foal. What a lethal white foal is a genetic condition that causes something called Escherichia coli. Some people will explain that as being like a disconnect of the colon to the rectum. It's not actually a disconnect though. What it is it's a lack of innervation to that part of the colon, meaning lack of nerve supply to that part of the colon. So therefore, what happens is the digestive tract does not work there, and so feces will back up and they're not able to have a bowel movement. And this unfortunately is 100% fatal. It's a very, very ugly thing when it happens, because the foals are born and they're normal for a little bit, and then they start to act colicky, meaning they start to exhibit signs of abdominal pain pretty early on, sometimes within just 2-3 hours. Sometimes it'll take 12 hours. It just depends. In the end, the foal will die, but in essence, most of them get euthanized, because once you figure out that it is a lethal white overo foal, there is no saving them from it. So they need to be euthanized as quickly as possible, because there's no reason for them to suffer. Now, you may be asking, why in the world would we have horses that have lethal white genes? As long as you are testing at least one parent for the gene and not breeding two together that have it, so you're not breeding a lethal white carrier stallion to a lethal white carrier mare, then there's no chance of you getting a lethal white overo foal. Therefore, it does not affect them at all. There's no such thing as it being like a little bit of lethal white overo. They either are or they aren't. It used to be back in the day that people used to really, and actually I will say that this probably still happens to this day, where people actually sought out lethal white overo carriers because they tend to be very, very colorful. As you can see from those four that I just showed you, they have a lot of color. So they have a lot of white, they have a lot of like really wild markings, and people like that. For us, we don't care about color at all. I know we talk about it a lot, but it's more just like a curiosity thing. We don't breed for color. We don't ever focus on color being like our main reason why we're going to breed this mare to this stallion. We always here, at least for us, are focused on quality, correcting any conformational flaws and breeding the best combination possible to then create the best quality animal that we can possibly create. But there are a lot of people out there that focus on color, and unfortunately it's typically farms that don't show, and they focus solely on color. And I will be the first to say that I do not approve of that. I don't think that that's right, and I think that that is doing a disservice to the entire breed. And William, King of the Mountain. And now for us, we color test all of our stallions, so we know what they all are before we ever breed them to anything. We do not test every single mare, because our stallions are lethal white negative. So therefore we really don't have to. If we had a lethal white stallion, then we would have to test every single mare that we were to breed that stallion to. A lot of people will say, they'll only test the ones that look suspicious. And by suspicious, that usually means that they have like blue eyes or kind of funky face markings, or just a lot of white in general. But I will tell you that that is absolutely not the way to do it. If you have a lethal white stallion, you have to test every single mare that they are bred to, because one of these days you are going to get fooled, and there will be a completely solid color mare that turns out to be a lethal white carrier. And if you get that lethal white foal, I can promise you it is devastating. It was many, many years ago when we had the one that we had. It was a buckskin mare, completely solid. Had no idea that she was lethal white. We did know that the stallion was, but this is like back in like I think it was like before, I was like, I don't know, 10 or something. And honestly, it was just a matter of, we didn't know that horses could carry the lethal white gene and not exhibit some type of color difference where you would kind of have the heads up that they might be lethal white. And then if you breed a lethal white stallion to a lethal white mare, then if they're both carriers, you have a 25% chance of that foal becoming a complete lethal white, which means that it will die. And I'm just gonna say here, because I'm sure that there's gonna be comments that people are gonna say, you know they carry lethal white, why would you even breed it at all? And the bottom line is, it's a type of genetic disease that only manifests itself when both parents are carriers, similar to cystic fibrosis in people. So it's like, it's not to say that a person, if they have the CF gene, should not reproduce. It only becomes an issue when both parents carry that gene. So if we have good quality horses that are correct in all the other ways that we look for them to be correct, there is no reason for us not to breed them, as long as we're not breeding them to another lethal white. Different genetic diseases that big horses can carry, they don't eliminate those carriers from the gene pool altogether. They just try to make sure that they're not breeding two together to where it actually will become a problem in the foal. So let me know if that makes sense. If not, I can answer more questions about that. And let me know in the comments too if you guys have heard of this, and any of you, many people out there, if you unfortunately have had one, then let me know. I hope that in this day and age with, you know, the accessibility of education via social media and different things, that it doesn't happen as nearly as often as it used to. And I actually haven't heard of anyone that I know of having one in quite a while. So I think that that is the case, but let me know if you guys have ever had one.